Hi, my name is Tommy Pruden. Welcome to the Common Sense Defense Podcast. This is the last segment of our four-part series, the Indo-Pacific collaboration, building the framework for treaty partner defense integration. And so we've gone through the last three segments talking about the architecture that you need, the framework that you need to make sure that you have policies in place that allow your forces to collaborate. So whether it's the United States working with Japan or Japan working with the Philippines or the United States working with Australia, all those pieces have to work together before you can actually have physical operations. So that's kind of what we've been discussing. And then also we had went through the trilateral summit last week between the United States and the Philippines, United States, Philippines, and Japan. And so that was very integral in moving forward for our nation in the Indo-Pacific. So today, I want to deal with more specifically the physical the physical manifestation, the physical operation that you need to put in place from an architectural perspective, so that you can actually practice and roll out those the real world policies or the hard power of policy structure. So I want to look at a couple of things. I want to start with looking at an article from the War Zone. This is this is from a few months ago, 9/13/23. But there's a component in it that I really want to talk through that relates to what we're going to need in the Indo-Pacific as it relates to a collaborative platform for basing. And then also I want to talk about how in the book that I wrote, China Rising, the Case for Containment, how that's very integral to the success of an Indo-Pacific strategy to contain China. So this from the first paragraph says the future Air Force in the Pacific will have a robust, and the article is entitled Collaborative Air Combat Drones (CCA). Collaborative air combat drones will head to Pacific en masse, and this is from the War Zone. The future Air Force in the Pacific will have a robust and growing hub and spoke system of austere bases, a full complement of the service's newest crewed aircraft and weapons and combat drones. Lots and lots of combat drones. Um, then I want to go down to the section that says the Air Force said earlier this year it plans to invest more than $6 billion in concept and development and execution between now and 2028. Although Service Acquisition Chief Andrew Hunter declined to give a timeline for the first contracting and solicitation. The Air Force officials have said they want at least 1,000 CCAs or collaborative combat aircraft to augment a planned fleet of 200 NGADs or next generation air dominance combat jets and 300 F-35s. There are already indications that the fleet of CCAs could end up becoming much larger. Um, in the book that I wrote, we discuss about the Indo-Pacific Defensive Zone, and I will put up a map and picture for you. But in that zone, it goes all the way through the first island chain, all the way down to Singapore, and then goes back up towards India, and then to Djibouti in Africa, and then brings it all the way. The whole area in the Indo-Pacific, there's going to be drones that will be used for ISR and also strike, and so that's kind of the concept in the Indo-Pacific Defensive Zone. And this the article that we're looking at now and the framework that we're putting in place with meeting with Japan and meeting with the Philippines, all that is a back end to the fact that one day the Indo-Pacific is going to be a networked area for unmanned and manned platforms, and so that's really what I purport in my book. And actually, we're starting to see that being rolled out in real world articles here right now and policies. And so I'm trying to communicate to you and explain to you that that's the direction that we have to go. We have to maximize our capabilities so that we can um, propose a strong deterrent to China now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I want to talk about the physical architecture, which means the nuts and bolts that you need to put in place to actually the power to back up the policy. So this goes on in this particular article, and so many targets out of the battle space that your adversary will have to worry about and wonder, is that something that I have to use some munitions on? They're not going to be able to tell, Wolbach said. Autonomous platforms are here to stay, and they have to, our adversary, near peer adversaries, have to pay attention to that. And then you see this everywhere, whether it is current in the Red Sea with them attacking our ships and attacking the maritime traffic there. You see drones coming in. That's here to stay. You see that in Ukraine with Russian platforms, with the Ukrainian platforms that are autonomous. So that's here to stay. So it's only natural to know that whatever you see globally going on from a military perspective, that you just take that, you extrapolate it across the whole doctrine, and that is here to stay. So CCA, Collaborative Combat Aircraft, are the next generation of drones using artificial intelligence. And so additionally, in the book that I wrote, I talk up to the point that you don't have to have an airborne platform to use a CCA. You also can network a ship that launches off a CCA, and that ship is a point that is being defended by an unmanned aerial vehicle, a CCA. So you can defend not only an aircraft, but you also can defend a seaborne or maritime platform in a quad, inside of a contained area. You can have local air dominance. You can have local combat air support. You can have local combat ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities. So the concept of just using collaborative combat aircraft to pair off and work with manned aircraft, that is not totally the only way that those platforms can be used. And so that's kind of what I talk about in the book, is how we can pair off our manned and unmanned, do manned and unmanned teaming that way. So I want to look at one more section here that comes from this article in Warzone, and it's in the last paragraph of this page. It says, as far as where CCA will operate in the Pacific, Wilsbach said to expect them to live on a spectrum of bases, including the austere and rugged spokes being developed under the Air Force Agile Combat Employment, ACE, strategy. They won't be able to have a lot of support. They'll need to be robust enough to pull them out of a box. We're going to need them around just about everything. And that's what I just stated, and that's what I was writing about years ago, that now with the book that took 5 years to come out. But the concept is that strategy is it's going to be here to stay, and the strategy for using CCAs for defending just about islands, maritime platforms, airborne platforms, that's here to stay. And so we have to understand AI-backed automotive platforms are here to stay. All right, so I want to read an article apart from the book for you, and this, it talks about how once you have a CCA or you have a place for them to land or launch from, you need an area. So when I talk about hard power, being able to have the physical architecture in place that you need to secure the first island chain and the Indo-Pacific, you want to be able to have the ability to land and launch those platforms. And so this is where coalition air bases, joint air bases, comes into play. So let me read this part to you. Coalition air bases. Air power will be crucial for the following situations. If challenged by the People's Liberation Air Force in the event of a surprise attack, military escalation to provide ISR support, or to sterilize the airspace from enemy ISR drones and platforms. Each coalition air base needs facilities to launch, recover, and support drones from across the coalition. They also need to be able to launch and recover manned aircraft such as patrol planes, fighter planes, transport planes, along with AWACS and tankers. If an air detachment of 4 aircraft from each coalition nation sends their most advanced platform on a rotational basis, each nation will be represented. I'll give an example here. German, the British, Italians, Spanish, Eurofighters, Typhoons, French Rafales, or other coalition F-16s, F-15s, or F-35 shall all be represented. Each partner, this is the part I want to share, each partner needs to set aside some space, either at an existing air base or an entirely new facility near or in support of the coalition naval base in the Indo-Pacific area of operation. Counter-drone operations to detect, degrade, and destroy enemy ISR assets will also be crucial. And the reason I said that is because if you can destroy the enemy's ability to see and target your platforms, then that will be a critical step in degrading their surface attack and their attack capability. And so the enemy's ability to see you, if you can destroy or defeat that, then that's an asset or an advantage to your team. The last thing I want to read: Coalition for Freedom of Navigation Operations Mission Participation. Persistent freedom of navigation operations will require extensive ISR C4 capability, not to mention a generous number of varied platforms such as aircraft, drones, ships, subs, space-based assets, long-range sensors, and other asymmetric tools capable of being used in the Indo-Pacific area. There will be more than enough work to be shared in the Phase 2 segment of the South China Sea Freedom of Navigation Operations Coalition. We have to work together to apply our vision to common problems to forge a solution so that we don't have to keep inventing new technology to compete with one another. We should find the common threat matrix we want to address as a community and design a solution and not waste precious resources. This talks specifically about working with Japan, working with the AUKUS partners. Japan will be a component, hopefully, of the AUKUS second pillar. And so working with our friends and allies so that we are not reinventing the same technology, same capabilities against each other to compete with each other on the defense market, global defense market, so that we can actually work together. Let's take an example of the air teaming system with Australia. Boeing and Australia work together, and it's a beautiful platform that they have. So there's a lot of different teaming and pairings that we can do with our friends around the world so that we can not reinvent the wheel. Now, when you have your basing policy in place, then you can ride across the top of that basing policy architecture with physical hard capability, aircraft, drones, refueling drones. All of those things work together so that you can not only have the deterrent in place, but also the ability to project power when you need to project power in the Indo-Pacific. So let me look at this example. We're going to use this is the last article that I want to talk about, and this is from the Marines. So this is called from the Marines article. It's called "The U.S. Marine Corps Aircraft and Personnel Conducts Distributed Aviation Operation and First U.S. F-35 Landing in Sweden during Exercise Nordic Response 24." So the same way that we have done on this test here, this maneuver, this operation is the same way that we can operate in the Indo-Pacific, and we already have pieces in place with the distributed maritime operation where we use forces, and I want to talk about the same capability here. So this term, distributed aviation operation. Here's a section out of this article that I wanted to read to you, and this is from the 16th of March, just last week. It says, "We're thrilled to welcome the first American F-35 landing here at Calix Air Force Base, and it's an F-35B from the United States Marine Corps." It goes on to say, "For the U.S. Marine Corps, of course, it's a part of an agile combat employment portion of the framework of the exercise we're conducting together right now, Nordic Response 24. The planned event provided an opportunity for U.S. Marine Corps aviation platforms to use a Swedish air base and host nation support to conduct aviation-delivered ground refueling from the U.S. KC-135J Super Hercules to U.S. F-35B Joint Strike Fighter aircraft." And so the ability of the plane lands on the refueling C-130 lands. The F-35 comes up next to it and it refuels it. It's not air to air; it's a ground-based refueling capability. I want to talk to the last point here. It says distributed aviation operations is a method of generating aviation combat power through the coordinated employment of aviation squadrons, command and control agencies, aviation logistics, and aviation ground support units disaggregated across the battlefield that challenges adversary targeting efforts. The main concept of distributed aviation operations distributes command and control across across echelons of command, pushing authorities to the lowest level while keeping forces moving between airfields and air sites. It also integrates and builds interdependencies between the second marine aviation and its allies and partners. Okay, what is all that saying? Is that concept of moving 4 aircraft from one area to another is precisely the concept that I'm using or talking about that we need to develop in the Indo-Pacific. Being able to move 4 airplanes or aircraft, a 4 aircraft sail in anywhere in the Indo-Pacific, whether it's Japan, the Philippines, austere base in the middle of the Pacific, or a runway or a highway that's 2 or 3,000 feet straight away. The ability to move your platforms around so they're not targeted and so that they can be an asset to project power, that's precisely what I'm telling you that we need to get done. That's precisely what I have written in the book, China Rising: The Case for Containment. That's precisely what I'm talking about. And so as we move forward in time, when you're working in a distributed maritime environment, you have to have all the pieces in place to operate your systems, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing. That is exactly what I'm proposing that we do even more, so that we can have a cutting edge advantage over the PRC if we go and have a conflict with them over Taiwan. So let's recap. So you're putting your framework in place for your policies so that you can work with your friends and allies. Then it's specific to each nation, whether it's the United States and Australia, whether it's the United States and UK, which we've already developed communication and policies in place with the UK, whether it's the United States and Japan, whether it's Japan to the Philippines, or whether it's the United States to the Philippines, having all those pieces in place so that if I need to move an aircraft, an unmanned drone from Australia, landed in the Philippines, then landed in Japan, we can do that. The policies are there, the capabilities are there. If we need to move, or Japan needs to move a plane from Kadena Air Base and move it down to Palawan Island in the Philippines, their pieces are in place from a policy perspective and from a logistical perspective to be able to do that. If you need to move a drone anywhere in the Indo-Pacific, it should from any one of those coalition countries, then you should be able to accomplish that. From a policy perspective and from a hard power perspective or logistics perspective, that's the key. So when we look at Indo-Pacific collaboration and building the framework for a treaty partner defense integration, that means the whole spectrum. That means from a policy perspective, with our rules, our laws, our command authorities, all those different types of components. To I want to qualify that command authorities specific to each nation, and then us working together, not any individual country over command authority over other people's resources, but how we should have communication, command to command communication capabilities, so that we respect, understand where everyone's coming from, and have transparency. And for moving through the whole arc to actually pulling off the operations of ISR or strike, if you need to, if you have a military situation that you're involved with. So the point is, moving forward through the whole arc there, we have the systems and the policies in place and the practical capabilities in place so that we can do that. And that by itself gives you another level of deterrence. That's how we do. That's how you can get to a situation where you actually prevent war, because you have the systems in place that everyone can work together. So I'm hoping that I was able to communicate to you the importance of this and how that's something we've discussed through the book China Rising: The Case for Containment, and how real world is replicating right in front of our face policies that I was discussing 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago and putting the book together, and now that's out. So if you want to get a copy of the book, you can get that from the Common Sense Defense podcast page, and that will be that'll be available to you. But the reality is, this is where we are now as a nation. We have to work with our friends and allies. We have to be free to go forward in life in the future without having war with China, and the only way you can accomplish that is through deterrence and good policies put in place for your friends and allies. Hey, thank you for being with me on this series, and we look forward to talking to you really soon, and you have a great day.